Hey, good morning. I'm Patricia Murphy. It's Monday. This is Seattle Now. Until very recently, Washington's Department of Licensing self-service line sounded like this when you pressed 2 for Spanish.
Thank you for calling the Department of Licensing Customer Support Center.
It was like that for months. We'll talk about what went wrong and what it took to fix the issue in a minute. But first, let's get you caught up. King County Metro is expanding bus service on March 28th. The same day, light rail will finally cross Lake Washington. The new service includes earlier morning trips, later nighttime service, and additional weekend runs, mostly on the east side and in South King County. They're intended to improve service around the Cross Lake connection. Also on the 28th, Metro will introduce all-door boarding to speed up trips and reduce delays. The so-called millionaire's tax recently passed by state lawmakers is making headlines, but Washington's estate tax actually got rolled back during this legislative session. The tax rate went down for every estate worth more than $1 million. On the top end, estates worth more than $12 million will now be taxed at 20%. Previously, that was 35%, the highest in the nation. Seattle Times reports the change comes amid concerns that increasing taxes could encourage wealthy residents to relocate. And SeaTac Airport is collecting food donations for TSA workers. They've been working without pay during the current partial government shutdown. The airport food pantry is also collecting hygiene products and baby supplies. You can donate at the Airport Conference Center between 8 and 4 on weekdays. An airport spokesperson told Axios the shutdown so far has not increased wait times in security lines. We're back with more headlines on tonight's episode of Seattle Now. For the last several months, Washington's Department of Licensing has had a major problem with its self-service language options.
I just called the DOL, and they're like, press 1 for English, press 2 for Spanish. Standard, right?
Maya Edwards and her husband tried to use its Spanish option back in July and noticed something strange.
Tell me why it stays in English but switches to a Hispanic accent. Except for numbers.
The Spanish option was in English. Maya reached out to the Department of Licensing about the issue. She also posted about it on TikTok.
I'm going to call on here for you to see that I am not making this up.
Please press 1 for English. 2 para español. For assistance with scheduling a driver licensing office appointment, canceling an existing appointment, or questions about an upcoming appointment, please press 1.
For months, nothing changed. So in February, Maya posted again. This time, the video went viral. It got millions of views. It even got the attention of the Department of Licensing and Spokane Public Radio reporter Monica Carrillo-Casas.
That's when I reached out to them about the situation, and it seems like they didn't realize that the issue was happening until they viewed the video.
The DOL acknowledged the error and temporarily took down their non-English options. It's unclear why Maya Edwards' first attempt to contact the department failed. UConn professor Jian Suk says the video's effectiveness is unsurprising.
This is actually how social media works and how social media operates.
She studies how communication technologies mobilize people into action. Maya Edwards' viral video is an example of how social media has become a tool for accountability. Where one complaint can be dismissed, mass visibility and collective action are harder to ignore.
When culturally laden topics are combined with emotion like frustration or anger, I think it has a power to resonate with a lot of audiences who have experienced similar things before.
Maya's video didn't just get comments and likes. People called in and put pressure on the DOL to address the problem.
I thank all of you for calling in and Monica for actually getting a statement from the DOL confirming that this video helped to change the language process in Washington for the DOL.
So far, the DOL has said very little about what happened or why it persisted for so long. In a statement, they blamed the issue on a configuration error with new technology. The intent of this technology was to create streamlined accessibility. In reality, it did just the opposite. It's the kind of thing that Ryan Burns is hoping to prevent. He's president of Responsible AI Washington, which focuses on helping organizations introduce AI into their workflows. Ryan Burns is here now to break down what likely happened and how he would have advised differently. Thanks for taking the time, Ryan.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
So based on the limited information we have from the Department of Licensing, what likely happened to cause an error like this?
I think that we can take them at their word. It probably was a staff error. Whenever you set up a system similar to this, there's usually some kind of a configuration page in the background that where you can toggle the settings, you can change the ways that different languages link up with different numbers on the keypad and so on. And that probably is what happened. The deeper issue, though, is that there are a number of frameworks and steps that organizations and institutions usually go through in deploying a new technology like this, that since this problem happened, I can assume they didn't go through. Again, that's a big assumption, but based on what we know and how things ended up going, I think it is a safe assumption.
Had you been involved from the start, how might you have advised this rollout of this new technology for the Department of Licensing?
I would have started out with a very rudimentary question of what problem is this trying to solve? And then from that problem framing, we can start to design certain kinds of approaches. Some of them are going to lead into AI for sure, but some of them don't necessarily need to. And even if they do lead into AI, one of the important things is that there are a number of really important steps that organizations have to go through to deploy this responsibly. So all the way from public consultation to soliciting vendors to making sure that in the execution of this, that all the wires line up, that when you press 2, it does go to Spanish and not Russian or Hungarian or one of the other, I think 7 or 9 languages that they have available. So just making sure that all the cables get crossed the right way, all the way to monitoring and evaluation and just making sure that this continues to perform the way that you expect it to.
It sounds like there's a difference between turning something over to AI and using AI in a way that's complementary to what you're trying to achieve.
Absolutely. And that's one of the biggest challenges that we're facing right now is that a lot of organizations, perhaps the Department of Licensing, but I can't say this for sure, but a lot of organizations hear of the huge promises and glitzy marketing around AI right now and think that what you need to do is just push a few buttons and your operations are going to get more efficient, you'll be more productive, you'll save some money, and that's really not a good way of approaching this. Some of that might happen in the long run, but to get there requires a lot of deliberate, very intentional steps and very intentional thought processes around who's going to be impacted even within your own organization, let alone if you're working with a public-facing side of this.
Is it likely that in the future there will be more hiccups like this type of rollout from a government agency?
That's one of the warning signs that I'm seeing in the Department of Licensing's acknowledging the problem here, is that if they're blaming a staff person, if they're blaming a configuration error, then the root of the problem isn't really being addressed. They really need to be thinking about the multiple steps structurally that really need to be embedded into their workflows in deploying AI in order to avoid this happening again. Otherwise, if they really genuinely think that this is an individual problem, somebody did something wrong, then this is just going to keep happening over and over again because it's not an individual, it's systems, it's processes, it's structures and fail-safes.
Perhaps a chilling effect for people who did press 2, who are Spanish speakers, who needed licensing information and didn't get it. I wonder if they contacted the Department of Licensing or simply hung up and did not complete the action that they intended.
That's exactly the risk here, and that's why it's an issue of accessibility. Thankfully, the person who drew attention to this case spoke English enough to be able to get by, but you can imagine that there were lots of people who were not as fortunate as that person. And again, this is sort of a relatively low-stakes situation. It's not insignificant, but it is in comparison with law enforcement or healthcare or judicial sentencing, some of the other cases in which AI is trying to be deployed, this could have had way bigger repercussions. We're sort of, in a way, lucky that it happened in a relatively low-stakes environment like this. And to your question about what's going to stop this from happening in the future. Well, this is really why it's important that we take this case seriously as a signal of what could go wrong in a much higher stakes environment.
You know, Ryan, this is really interesting because government agencies are trying to become more accessible. They're also pretty short-staffed.
And that's where AI can actually be a really great addition to the workflow. In an ideal world, they would have enough funding to support staff in every language that they want to offer, and they would have unlimited resources to provide the community so they have uninhibited access across the board, no matter what language you speak. But, that's not, unfortunately, the reality we live in. So I understand the value that AI can bring to an organization or a government, and I don't fault them for that at all. I'm actually kind of excited about the ability to have multiple languages be so readily accessible to people who need them. So pursue accessibility, pursue efficient ways of expanding services and offerings, but be aware that rushing to do this or doing it without proper workflows and procedures and structures in place is going to likely harm as many people as it helps.
Responsible AI Washington President Ryan Burns, thanks so much for taking the time.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate you listening to Seattle Now, and thanks to our generous donors for your financial support. Take a minute to rate and review the show on your favorite podcast app. Today's episode was produced by Brooklyn Jamerson Flowers. It was edited by Caroline Chamberlain Gomez. Our production team also includes Andy Hurst, Vaughn Jones, and Paige Browning. Greg Kramer does our theme music. Seattle Now and KUOW Public Radio are members of the NPR network. I'm Patricia Murphy. See you tonight for Evening Headlines.